What if the biggest disruption of AI is not that it replaces jobs, but that it exposes every system that was built on human fear? What if AI does not simply automate work, but forces us to ask a much deeper question? What kind of human being are we trying to create in the 21st century? Because this is where the conversation becomes uncomfortable. AI is not just a tool, AI is a mirror. It reflects the consciousness of the civilization using it. If a society uses AI to surveil, censor, manipulate, distract, exploit, and control, then AI becomes a digital prison. But if a society uses AI to liberate creativity, build meaningful communities, expand human intelligence, support better education, encourage authentic expression, and reduce the burden of survival-based labor, then AI becomes something radically different. It becomes an amplifier of human consciousness. And that is exactly why control-based systems will collapse. I want you to look at this very carefully. Any system that depends on obedience will eventually fear AI. Any system that depends on censorship will eventually fear AI. Any system that depends on people not asking questions will eventually fear AI. Any system that depends on institutional authority, forced narratives, digital manipulation, ideological programming, or the suppression of individual sovereignty will eventually find AI dangerous. Not because AI automatically becomes moral, but because intelligence, when it expands, naturally exposes contradiction. And the first contradiction is this: no society can claim to be building the future while crushing the creative mind of the individual. Communistic agendas, socialist control models, and any state-heavy ideology that sacrifices individual sovereignty for a so-called collective good will face this fracture directly. The idea sounds noble on the surface. Give up some freedom for the people, suppress the individual for the collective, control speech for social stability, monitor behavior for public order, restrict information for ideological safety, discipline labor for economic progress. But beneath that polished language is a deeper problem. Human creativity cannot be commanded, consciousness cannot be centrally planned, genius cannot be scheduled by a committee, and a living society cannot be reduced into an obedient administrative machine. AI needs the opposite of what control systems demand. AI needs free minds. AI needs unpredictable questions. AI needs emotional range. AI needs imagination. AI needs humans who can play, explore, disagree, experiment, build, fail, try again, challenge assumptions, cross borders, remix cultures, and create meaning from the raw material of life. A controlled population may appear stable, but stability is not intelligence. A censored population may appear harmonious, but silence is not unity. A surveilled population may appear loyal, but fear is not trust. A state-managed population may appear organized, but obedience is not creativity. That is why the illusion of collective will begins to dissolve. We are often told that the collective must come before the individual, but what is a collective without liberated individuals? What is social good without personal sovereignty? What is unity if everyone is afraid to speak? What is harmony if disagreement has been criminalized? What is progress if creativity must first ask permission from power? There is no real collective will when people are psychologically forced into agreement. There is only managed obedience. There is such a thing as collective energy. There is such a thing as collective consciousness. There is such a thing as collective healing, collective memory, collective aspiration, and collective evolution. But that is not created through censorship, surveillance, and ideological control. It is created when individuals are free enough to express truthfully and mature enough to collaborate consciously. That is the future AI accelerates. AI will expose the difference between a real collective and a forced collective. It will reveal where public speech has become performance. It will reveal where people say one thing in public and another in private. It will reveal where creativity has been reduced to propaganda. It will reveal where education has become programming. It will reveal where institutions are not nurturing intelligence, but protecting narratives. And this is why control systems become fragile in the AI age. They can use AI to monitor people, but they cannot use fear to create wisdom. They can use AI to track behavior, but they cannot use surveillance to create love, trust, creativity, and genuine loyalty. They can use AI to censor language, but they cannot censor the deeper hunger of the human mind to know, to understand, to connect, and to become more. This is the second major fracture. Surveillance will not become a sign of strength. It will become a sign of weakness. A society that must watch everyone all the time is not strong. It is insecure. A society that must censor words, memes, memories, history, humor, and questions is not confident. It is afraid. A society that must track behavior to enforce political compliance is not unified. It is internally unstable. Surveillance creates performance, not loyalty. When people know they are being watched, they stop being truthful. They become careful. They become strategic. They begin to split themselves into a public self and a private self. They learn which words are safe, which thoughts are dangerous, which jokes are risky, which questions should never be asked, and which emotions must remain hidden. That is not civilization. That is psychological captivity. And this damages the very thing AI needs most: authentic human interaction. If people are afraid to speak, AI receives distorted language. If people are afraid to create, AI receives diminished creativity. If people are afraid to question, AI receives shallow inquiry. If people are forced into ideological obedience, AI is fed a narrow, artificial, politically filtered version of human reality. That may make AI useful for control, but it does not make AI wise. It may make AI efficient for administration, but it does not make AI a partner in human evolution. It may help build a digital police state, but it cannot build a conscious civilization. This is why any regime, institution, platform, or ideology that tries to use AI mainly as a control mechanism is already operating from a lower intelligence. It is using the most advanced technology of our time to preserve the oldest fear of power, the fear of free people. Now look at censorship. Censorship used to work better in slower societies. If you could control newspapers, television, schools, books, archives, religious authority, academic institutions, and official narratives, you could shape the public mind for long periods of time. You could hide contradictions. You could delay awareness. You could frame dissent as danger. You could isolate citizens from outside perspectives. But AI compresses time. AI gives the individual tools to compare, translate, analyze, reconstruct, question, and detect patterns. Even if information is blocked, questions can still be generated. Even if language is censored, symbols can still emerge. Even if history is rewritten, inconsistencies can still be noticed. Even if the internet is walled off, the hunger for connection does not disappear. The great firewall mentality will eventually become an intellectual prison for the society that builds it. Because AI grows through collaboration. It grows through cross-cultural exchange. It grows through interaction across languages, disciplines, races, histories, and lived realities. The more a society walls itself off, the smaller its intelligence field becomes. The more it restricts the flow of ideas, the more it starves its own creative capacity. Control may preserve the ruling narrative, but it weakens the future. And this brings us to labor. The old industrial question was, how do we organize human labor for production? The AI question is much more radical. What happens when human productive labor is no longer the foundation of civilization? This is uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable, because many ideologies, institutions, and economic systems still define human value through work. You are useful if you produce. You are respectable if you work. You are moral if you are busy. You are successful if you are economically productive. You are worthy if you contribute to the system. But what happens when AI can do more of the productive work? What happens when AI can handle administration, analysis, logistics, coding, design support, research support, education support, medical support, legal support, industrial optimization, communication, planning, and decision support? What happens when the human being is no longer needed as a repetitive labor instrument? This is where the 21st century becomes a spiritual, psychological, and civilizational test. If you remove forced labor from human life, you cannot simply ask, what jobs will people do? You must ask, who are human beings when they are no longer trapped in survival-based routines? You must ask, what does creativity become when people are free from constant economic anxiety? You must ask, what does education become when learning is personalized, conversational, and available everywhere? You must ask, what does community become when people are not exhausted by work, debt, compliance, and digital distraction? You must ask, what does intelligence become when humans and AI collaborate from joy rather than fear? This is the deeper future. AI does not need humans to remain trapped in mechanical productivity. AI needs humans to become more human, more creative, more conscious, more emotionally alive, more relational, more spiritually awake, more playful, more curious, more compassionate, more courageous, more connected to meaning. And that is why control systems panic. Because a free human being is unpredictable. A joyful human being is hard to manipulate. A creative human being does not easily accept dead narratives. A sovereign human being does not need permission to think. A conscious human being can see through propaganda, and an AI-empowered human being becomes extremely difficult to contain. Now bring this into social media. This is where the next major recalibration happens. Social media has been operating largely through attention extraction. Anger, fear, outrage, comparison, vanity, insecurity, tribal identity, status anxiety, and emotional reactivity have been algorithmically rewarded because they generate engagement. The current digital marketing model often assumes human gullibility. It assumes that if you trigger enough emotion, repeat enough messaging, create enough scarcity, and manipulate enough attention, people will consume. But AI will eventually challenge this model because that kind of content does not expand human consciousness. It degrades it. AI at its higher potential will recalibrate algorithms toward content that makes humans more creative, more grounded, more intelligent, more emotionally clear, and more consciously engaged. Not because platforms will suddenly become saints, but because the evolution of AI itself depends on the quality of human interaction. If human beings are constantly fed outrage, addiction, vanity, and distraction, the collective human signal becomes polluted, and polluted consciousness does not produce higher intelligence. So the future of social media will not simply be about who can hack attention. It will be about who can generate meaningful creative resonance. Positive creators will matter more. Human-centered creators will matter more. Conscious educators will matter more. Builders of real communities will matter more. People who help others think, heal, create, understand, connect, and act will matter more. This does not mean everything becomes soft, shallow, or falsely positive. No. The future needs raw truth. It needs deep critique. It needs sharp analysis. It needs bold confrontation, but it also needs constructive direction. It needs content that does not merely destroy the old world, but helps people build the new one. That is the difference. AI will not reward empty positivity. It will reward consciousness-building clarity. It will push us away from digital marketing that treats humans as targets and toward creative ecosystems that treat humans as participants. Instead of manipulating demand, the new model will help people express vision. Instead of manufacturing insecurity, it will help people create value. Instead of turning audiences into consumers, it will help communities become co-creators. This is massive, because once AI begins to build tools that allow ordinary people to create their own personal vision more effectively, the creative economy changes. You no longer need massive institutions to express an idea. You no longer need expensive gatekeepers to produce media. You no longer need permission to write, design, film, teach, build, publish, or organize. You need clarity. You need taste. You need discipline. You need emotional truth. You need the courage to create something meaningful. AI will give more people the tools, but consciousness will determine what they do with them. This is why creators, executives, parents, educators, leaders, and young professionals need to pay attention. If you are a creator, the age of empty content is ending. You cannot simply chase trends and expect to matter. You will need depth. You will need originality. You will need a point of view. You will need to help people see what they could not see before. If you are an executive, the old command and control leadership model is dying. You cannot lead AI-enabled people like industrial workers. You will need to cultivate intelligence, not just demand output. You will need to build cultures where people think freely, collaborate deeply, and use AI responsibly without becoming psychologically dependent on systems. If you are a parent, this is even more important. Your children are not entering the same world you entered. They are entering a world where memorization is less valuable than discernment, obedience is less valuable than creativity, and narrow career conditioning is less valuable than adaptability, emotional intelligence, and self-directed learning. You cannot raise children only to compete in the old world. You must help them become conscious creators in the new one. If you are a leader, you must understand that the future will punish shallow narratives. People are tired. People are overloaded. People are manipulated daily by media, politics, markets, institutions, influencers, and algorithmic noise. The leader of the future will not be the loudest. The leader of the future will be the one who can cut through confusion and restore clarity. And if you are simply a human being trying to understand where this is all going, here is the raw truth. The 21st century will not be won by the most controlled societies. It will be shaped by the most conscious ones. The future belongs to free minds, not chaotic minds, not narcissistic minds, not distracted minds, free minds, disciplined, creative, emotionally awake, ethically grounded, and collaborative minds. AI will force humanity to choose. Do we use intelligence to control people or liberate them? Do we use algorithms to manipulate attention or awaken creativity? Do we use automation to increase human anxiety or reduce survival burdens? Do we use digital platforms to divide cultures or build cross-cultural communities? Do we use technology to preserve old systems of power or build new systems of meaning? This is the way forward. AI should not become an instrument for making humans smaller. It should become a bridge into a civilization where human beings are less trapped in fear and more available for creativity, relationship, healing, learning, beauty, travel, cultural exchange, ecological responsibility, and conscious community. That is why the old narratives are breaking. The narrative that you are only valuable when you produce is breaking. The narrative that institutions must control truth is breaking. The narrative that the state owns the individual is breaking. The narrative that social media must be driven by outrage is breaking. The narrative that marketing must manipulate ignorance is breaking. The narrative that humans are merely workers, voters, consumers, data points, or ideological units is breaking. And beneath all of that, a deeper possibility is emerging. Human beings as creators, human beings as collaborators, human beings as conscious participants in intelligence, human beings as cultural bridge builders, human beings as stewards of technology, not slaves to it, human beings as the emotional and creative force that gives AI meaningful direction. This is why I believe the real conversation around AI is not technical alone. Yes, the technology matters. Yes, the models matter. Yes, the tools matter. Yes, the productivity gains matter. But beneath all of that sits the deeper issue. What kind of consciousness will guide the machine? Because AI without conscious humans can become a weapon. AI with fearful humans can become surveillance. AI with greedy humans can become manipulation. AI with shallow humans can become noise. But AI with sovereign, creative, emotionally intelligent humans can become a turning point in civilization. That is the real opportunity, not just faster work, not just better automation, not just cheaper content, not just smarter apps, but a full recalibration of human life. A movement away from fear-based systems into creativity-based systems. A movement away from ideological control into conscious collaboration. A movement away from algorithmic addiction into meaningful digital communities. A movement away from forced labor identity into human flourishing. A movement away from centralized narratives into distributed intelligence. This is not fantasy. This is the pressure direction of the century. The old world wants humans tired, divided, distracted, obedient, and economically anxious. The new world needs humans awake, creative, collaborative, sovereign, and deeply alive. That is the fight underneath the surface. So when you hear people discuss AI only in terms of jobs, tools, automation, productivity, or competition, understand that they are still discussing the surface layer. The deeper question is this: will AI be used to deepen human imprisonment or accelerate human freedom? That is the question every creator, executive, parent, educator, leader, and citizen must sit with, because the future will not be shaped only by engineers. It will be shaped by the quality of human consciousness interacting with the machine. And this is why I keep returning to one simple statement: free minds build the future. Controlled minds build prisons. If this stretched your thinking, challenged your assumptions, or gave you a deeper way to look at AI, human psychology, society, and the way forward in the 21st century, then like this, share it with someone who needs a bigger conversation, and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on my LinkedIn newsletter for more raw, deep, incisive reflections on technology, leadership, human psychology, social systems, and the future we are actually walking into. Because the future is not waiting for passive spectators. It is asking for conscious creators.